Welcome to the Everything Is Earned podcast. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm your co-host, Tim.
And we're here to break down everything happening in your Cleveland sports world.
As we do.
As we do, absolutely. And today, actually, several things happened in Cleveland sports that were really kind of dicey.
Interesting. We had some drama today in Cleveland.
A little bit of drama happened. Not out of the norm for Cleveland sports, but today, when no sports are happening, kind of an unusual thing. So, kind of starting off here, former Browns linebacker Joe Schobert had some things to say on a media call that he had down in Jacksonville. The tweet here was originally sent out by a member of Jacksonville media.
His name was Hayes Collion.
And he basically said that Joe left Cleveland for Jacksonville because he wanted to win.
Because he wanted to win. Does that sound like something he left Cleveland for?
Not particularly. I mean, if I was Joe, I mean, you could say something like that. I mean, you're obviously, wanting to stay in Cleveland. You want Cleveland to give you big money, and if you don't get that big money from Cleveland, you're going to be a little bit hurt about it. So whether or not he actually meant to say that is kind of up for debate. But
to think that he believes that the Jacksonville Jaguars organization is in a better place to contend to win right now than the Cleveland Browns is laughable, in my opinion.
Yeah, we do have one of our sources give us some information about that particular media call and clear up a little bit of the information. Basically, what he was attempting to say and what was reported differently was that Joe wanted to build a team to be a perennial contender, and that he believed that coming from a team that was 1-31, over a couple-year period, there's going to be an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, so Joe Schobert came out, he quoted that little bit and said that the initial thing that he wanted to the reason he left Cleveland is what he wanted to win. He quoted that, he said it wasn't true. He said, yeah, it's not what I said. But from our source here, I have the transcript from what was asked and what Joe Schobert said. On the question on what he feels he has to prove Jacksonville. So not quite the question that Hayes initially reported from. He said, I come from a franchise where I didn't play in the playoffs. I was 1-31 in my first 2 seasons. That was my record. I just want to prove that I can be a part of a winning franchise, a winning organization.
So I mean, obviously that's a different type of feel. I mean, sometimes I imagine on these media like Zoom calls, it's difficult to sometimes get the information you want because it's a different format. You don't have the opportunity to pull a player aside after the call and say, hey, what was, I got this. Is this the correct thing you meant to say? Is what you're trying to say? I just want to make sure we're not having some misinformation here. So a different type of format, maybe not as easy to get the right information that you're looking for.
Right. So I think that clears it up. And he just goes on to say, I'll mention as examples the AFC Championship game and some playoff experience that Jacksonville had in the last few years.
Yeah, so ultimately, I think Joe's happy to be in Jacksonville. The Browns feel confident about what they have at linebacker, and they're obviously looking to continue to build talent.
Well, happy you have Mack Wilson who has a chance to blossom. You picked up Jacob Phillips, BJ. You drafted him. You signed BJ Judson to add a little bit more depth. Mm-hmm. You probably need to make another signing. Maybe a veteran, I'd say, to add to that young linebacker core. But it's looking a lot better than it did earlier in this offseason before all these events.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so ultimately we're going to move on from that. I mean, Joe Schobert, we appreciate his time here. Obviously, not the right fit for this current Browns roster, and going forward, really looking forward to what Mack Wilson and the rest of the guys can do. I think Mack Wilson's going to have an outstanding year.
I think he could thrive if he's put into that leadership role, which we think he will.
I really like Mack Wilson. I'm a big fan of Mack. So. Furthermore, there was additional drama. So it wasn't just a Joe Schobert thing. There was more drama.
Or just the one sport in football.
Yeah. So Keith Law, a prominent baseball writer here. He's a pretty big guy. He's a blogger, a reporter. Yeah, he does quite a bit. He has almost 500,000 followers on Twitter. The guy is very plugged in the baseball, and basically he said that he believes that Lindor's contract talks with the Indians, basically went, hey, let's look at some options. He said, no, we're going to free agency. That's the gist of it all.
Well, he was on Bull on the Thoughts on 92.3 The Fan earlier today. And yeah, he said, from his understanding, like you said, the Indians organization wanted to be in contract talks and negotiations and have that discussion and figure something out long term. And Francisco Lindor, like I said, from his understanding, this is his interpretation, he basically said, I don't want to do that. I just want to hit free agency. Basically, he believes that they're not going to pay him the money that he thinks he believes he deserves, that his value and what a star in this league makes, and knows that a small market like Cleveland might not be able to re-sign him while keeping enough flexibility to be able to compete year in year out.
I am going to actually do something crazier. I'm going to say the flip side is true. I think, honestly, I'm assuming the Indians are actually trying to sign him for an extension, and maybe they actually have the money to bring to the table for the extension this time. And Lindor basically goes, I'm going to free agency. And whether it's not, he doesn't want to play in Cleveland anymore or that's the deal. But I think one thing is true about Lindor. I think he's very good at media relations. I don't think he traps himself or puts himself in a position where he's not going to win. And that being said, he has said a lot of pro-Cleveland things over the last few years here. And very recently, he said very pro-Cleveland things. And so unless things get ugly down the road and things are said, I don't believe the Indians will ever release what actually happened with those conversation talks. But it seems like we're getting a more fuller picture over the last couple months here. And today is an example of what really do you think happened in those talks?
Well, I think he, like you said, he's always had a good rapport with Cleveland. I don't think necessarily he wants to leave Cleveland. I think in a few interviews recently, near spring training, heading into opening day, which we ended up not having. But I think he mentioned a few times when contract negotiations were brought up in interviews and press conferences that he understands that there's a small market team, and he also doesn't want to tie the organization down to his big contract and not being able to provide the rest of the support around the team.
It just goes back to the broken problem of baseball's salary and how bigger market teams can pay more money for better players. I just think it's a broken system to begin with. But if I'm really thinking about the Lindor situation, I wouldn't be surprised if Lindor wants to go to an organization that can make those trades and those acquisitions to beef up the roster before a playoff run to compete for a title. I think it's very clear that the Indians did that back in 2016 when they added Andrew Miller. I think in other years they attempted to do that on a more of a budget type of deal, but I think 2016 was probably the only year in recent memory here where the Indians actually made a big-time trade getting Andrew Miller, and all the things kind of aligned properly for the Indians to make that World Series run. And I think in today's baseball and the moves that the Indians have made over the last 24 months, it just doesn't say to me as a star player that we're trying to win.
Well, you have your young talent now needing to be re-signed or to be dealt to something you need to do with.
Not yet. No. I mean, yeah, Ramirez locked up, but your young talent next contracts you have coming up are
they've been
Clevenger's and then and Bieber's. Those are the next contracts you have to worry about.
We've been getting younger, and we've been trading off pitchers and some of those bigger salaries to maybe retain Francisco Lindor. But ultimately, I think we're going to have to ship him off to dispose your talent and to stay in contention, ultimately.
I think it's more of the LeBron James approach, where you're trying to stock up the cupboards before he goes. I think people were very upset about the way things happened with LeBron as he took all the assets out and they put all the chips in to try to win the title, and you did win a title, but I think people were saying how decimated they were in assets the years later. And I think the Indians are trying not to be like that, and if they can stock up their cupboards prior to Lindor going, they'd give themselves a chance to reboot things and move things forward. Not having him there.
I think they should still be in contention, and unlike the Taz, which went completely from contender to absolute worst in the league.
Right. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you have too deep of a farm system right now with the Indians to drop that far off. We have a really highly rated farm system right now. We have a lot of players that are going to be ready in the next couple of years. But I do believe that you have guys that you can build around in Franmil Reyes, and in the pitching staff seems to be very strong still. You have Clevenger, Bieber, and Carrasco.
Speaking of, you see Emmanuel Klaus, was it that ped for PEDs and is out for 85 games?
80 games.
Suspended for 80 games.
Yeah, he's the guy we got from the Kluber trade.
Yeah, Emmanuel Close? I don't know.
He's one of the main pieces we got from the Kluber trade, and ultimately looking at how the way things gone, you had the vision to go forward and say, okay, when is baseball going to come back? And
is it going to come back?
Yeah, well, is it going to come back this year for this season? I kind of doubt it. But one of the crazy things you think about is one of the reasons the Indians moved on from Kluber was because of health. But now you look at it and go, man, Kluber's had a really, really long offseason. He's going to come into the season ready to go and be fully healed because we haven't been playing for this whole time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, if you could go back and reverse that trade, knowing what we know now, you would feel very confident that you'd have a healthy Kluber going into this year, and you'd have a very stacked pitching roster. And now it just seems like you didn't get the proper value for him.
Well, I think it's easy to play ifs and buts in sports.
It's easy to say you had a Cy Young winner on the roster, and then you traded him away for peanuts and popcorn.
We could argue that Tito cut his arm pretty good over the last few seasons here, and maybe over pitching him and make him throw a little bit more than he had to. Yeah,
but look at the current roster now. If you were as confident as you are right now, and knowing that Emmanuel What's-His-Face is not going to play for 80 games, you've got to feel like if I'm confident with these pitchers now, I've got to feel like I can go deep into the season without even putting Kluber behind, on the mound, and then when he's ready, I can put him on the mound and we can go. Why would you not look at it that way? Why would you not hold Kluber to at least the trade deadline and get maximum value for him? It just seems like the Dolans are so unwilling to pay what his deal was this year that they shipped him off early for nuts and bolts.
Well, I think they panicked a little bit because they're trying to shed cap so they can re-sign Lindor.
I don't think they're trying to re-sign Lindor that way. You think they were?
I think they were, and then recently it hasn't gone the way that they hoped they would. And now they're looking, they're stuck with the hands in their heads.
The hands in their heads?
The heads in their hands. That's what I meant to say.
Stuck with their heads in their hands. More like they're up a creek without a paddle, or like
the same idea.
They're in a spot they don't want to be in with the current salary.
They thought it would go different with Lindor. And now it's turning out to be turning value sour, and you're ending up with less value, and you have more cap than you have to spend now, kind of. If you don't sign him.
So there's two camps right now of thought, I believe, with the Lindor situation. The first camp says, okay, if you're not going to be able to re-sign him, trade him now, get maximum value. The other camp says, you have him under contract for this year and next year. Play with him the next couple of years here, and if you can compete for a World Series, then do so. And if you're not in the contention next year, move him during the trade deadline. But some believe that if you have a poor start to this year, you could trade him during the deadline, and then you could easily get a big time value for him at the deadline and try to reload. But I don't know. There's two schools of thought. I personally am of the school of thought that if you trade him, sooner rather than later, his value will be higher because you'll have the team who will get him will have him under control for longer.
I agree. I think it would get a good amount of assets back in return for Lindor. But that's it's all speculation at this point.
We
don't know if the season's coming back. I think Tito and many other managers believe, or at least Tito wants the season to come back no matter how many games they have to play in the regular season. He said on, I want to say Fox Sports Ohio, that he'd play a World Series after 1 or 2 games. He's like, if we went right into it, or I had to play 1 or 2 games in the regular season, I'd be down. And he said that I don't think like the rest of the players on the league would think any differently, because once you get your competitive juices flowing, you're in it. You're all in it. So I don't think he's basically saying that it wouldn't be too big of a deal if they had a shortened season that led to a World Series.
I would like a really nice 60-game season.
That would be excellent.
I think a 60-game season for baseball would be very enjoyable because every game would have very much heightened meaning. And then when it came down to the playoffs, you would have players fully healthy or mostly healthy or in healthier positions than they would have been rather than playing a full season.
And
you might get some really nice baseball. Now you could make counter arguments that the players would peak and valley at different times, but I think a shorter season you would get the maximum amount of baseball out, and people would peak about the 30-game mark.
You might be able to go the opposite way and say there could be more injuries because each player is honed in more on each game and might be trying to go out each game for those 60 games instead of kind of pacing themselves throughout the 160-game season.
I don't know, man. I think less playing time equals less injuries. I think that's an easy calculation. Less playing time equals less injuries.
But sometimes just the workload. It maybe if they have to condense the schedule and play a few more games.
Well, you just got to think about your pitchers aren't going to. The pitchers are going to pitch less. They're going to have healthier pitchers. You're going to have a better setup playoff scenario where you have healthy pitchers, healthy batters, and guys who are not drained after playing 100 and some games. They're going to be ready to go after 60, and they're going to be hitting their peak, hitting their prime spot of the season in the sweet spot. When it comes to playoff time.
Well, we'll find out here. Well, it's all speculation at this point. We'll release a poll, see what you guys think. Leave a review. Let us know what you think. You think a shortened season would be better this time? Would it be viable? Would it be smart for the MLB to do? Or if not, I think they'll definitely, the managers and the owners would definitely try to push for a shortened season and have a season, regardless of how many games are to be played. But there is a possibility of it not being canceled for the entire year. So we'll see how that goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. On a non-drama related note of Cleveland sports, Odell said recently here in a YouTube video.
Wait. Stop right there. You mentioned no drama, and then you said Odell Beckham.
Yeah, right? Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Wow, that's a good day in Cleveland.
So there's no drama with Odell, but he did say in a YouTube video that he released on his Twitter that he played last season. Not only had the sports hernia, but then he sustained 2 more injuries. He had torn abductors and a rectus abdominis tear as well, which basically these are like ab to thigh region injuries.
So yeah, you're torn. The abductors are in your upper and inner thigh, so on the back of your thigh. And so if you're a wide receiver, how the hell can you play if you have a torn muscle?
It's gonna be really painful.
And then on top of that, he had a torn rectus abdominis, which is your abs, your muscles in your abs too.
Yes.
So if you didn't hit there, that's hurting every game too.
Oh yeah,
like crazy.
So he said that the surgeries he had for these injuries were the worst surgeries he ever had in terms of pain level and the severity of the injury, dealing with it was really crappy. And then he said right now he's trying to get his body in a place where he's retooled and fresh slated across the board. So he's working on every component of his athletic ability and his body to help be ready for the season.
I think that shows the character and his willingness to put his body on the line for the city. He got a lot of heat early. He got a lot of heat early in his tenure with Cleveland because he was in California during training camp and he wasn't spending as much time with Baker, and that probably hurt their chemistry early on. But I believe that ever since that training camp, that mistake that he didn't spend more time developing chemistry and learning the plays and getting that work with the rest of the Browns, he's tried to make up for that and do everything he can to show that he's here, he's with us in this Browns team, and he's going to put his body on the line no matter how hard he is.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I think he's real tough for going through those injuries. And like you said, obviously he was not there during the voluntary stuff. Early last season, he was off doing a couple different other things. A lot of drama was made over that. Whether or not it affected his chemistry, we'll never really know. But because of how bad the coaching was last year. But ultimately,
I think it just tied in the entire big colossal mess that it was.
It definitely didn't help the situation. And so ultimately, I think you clean the slate. I think Odell uses the great words there, clean the slate, get everything ready to go, and and jump into 2020, ready to make a splash. So I think seeing a bigger, stronger, faster Odell is something I'm definitely excited to see.
Yeah, he said that this year should be one of his best seasons in the NFL.
That I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped, because he wouldn't say that unless he truly believed it, and you won't say that about like your recovery or your how you feel about your body unless you truly meant that. You would downplay it some, and you would kind of slow play your progress if you didn't think you were going to have be ready to go.
Right, and remember he had a few injury plagued seasons in New York as well.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of an injury bug in the last few years, and he hasn't quite gotten over it. But I think he's talking about doing a reset and getting his body ready. I think it's great that he's doing that. And I think that can really help him with his health going forward. So when you work up your entirety and you kind of work on your body as a whole, having this extra time with the current state of things might be what Odell really needed to help get things move forward. So
right, you have to look at the underlying factor of the whole pandemic here, and it's exciting to think that you might have Jarvis Landry healthy, you might have Odell Beckham healthy, along with the additions of DPJ, Austin Hooper, and probably a healthy David Njoku too.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of injury out of our skill positions on the offensive end.
Yeah, if you look at at sports as a whole and you think about it, and you can go down to your drill down to your own teams with the Browns, the Cavs, the Indians. You've got to think that one of the positives you can take from everything is that your athletes in your major sports are going to be able to come into their respective sports when they start back up very healthy and had enough time removed from things to really let their body heal up and get ready to go.
Well, I think you will see the separation between the hardest workers and some of the more lazy players. So if they come in to camp out of shape, and it's difficult in some regards to get training and get your proper workouts, but in many respects, you can, as an NFL player, you have a lot of ties with
resources
organizations,
too, man.
Your colleges. Even if things are shut down, they can be open for like privately to people. I firmly believe that. Like you see that in open gyms or having a key card or to your former gym or your former school. There are options. It's a little bit easier for some of these higher paid if they have maybe
money greases the wheels, man.
But I mean,
things move behind the scenes. Ultimately, I think you're gonna see a lot of stories where players are coming into camp not quite in the shape they'd like to be in,
or maybe way out
across all sports. And I think it'll be up to the trainers and the staff of those teams to get people back into shape, back where they need to be. And we'll see if that affects anyone's roster positions too, because I think that could be an interesting storyline going forward.
And this to finish that up a little bit, you have to think maybe the workouts are a little bit different, which might affect the overall physical condition. So to wrap that up a little bit, though, we've had a few trades happen with some of these bigger names, and we have a few new wide receiver duos, and that's been one of the popular conversations as of late, since there's no real big news or sports news lately. So we've been speaking of what are the best wide receiver duos in the league. Obviously, you have Jarvis and Odell Beckham. In Cleveland, you have Fitzgerald, and now DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona for Kyler Murray, and a few others. You got Ridley and Julio in Atlanta. What's the one in Tampa? You have Evans and Evans and Godwin. Like there's a few out there, and we just wanted to give a top 5 wide receiver duos.
Yeah, for me, I'll give you mine real quick because I made the list the other day, and I think I like my list quite a bit. So I'm gonna go top 5. It's gonna be Beckham and Landry. Next is gonna be Julio and Ridley. Third, I got Hopkins, Fitzgerald. Fourth, I've got Diggs and John Brown. So Diggs with Buffalo now, and then I have 5. I have Evans and Godwin. So I think you have to look at this from a quarterback standpoint too, of who your quarterbacks are. I think if you're not taking the quarterback play into account as well, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball on this particular list.
Well, if we're talking about quarterbacks, then you left off a key duo of Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins because they have the best quarterback in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes, and you had them 7th on your list.
Yes, because I agree that I don't think that those guys, neither of them are a true number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, but we're waiting in the quarterback,
and that system's set to be a whole spread the ball offense. It's not set to be a big time 1 and a big time 2. And Hill is definitely a big time wide receiver, but he's not a traditional type wide receiver. He's a speed burner.
I think I'm gonna put Hopkins and Fitzgerald on my top 5. I think I'll do Beckham and Landry at number 1 still. I think their potential in the new system, being healthy, and benefiting off the
second year with Baker and
having chemistry
as well.
Year 2 for Beckham. Was it the third year for Jarvis? Oh, third year of him being with the Browns, but second year with Baker. So I think they have a lot of potential coming into Stefanski's system, working off the run game and being the second option, being the pass game. I think number 2, I think I'm going to stay with Julio Ridley. That's a very dominant duo. You might even consider them your best duo in the league.
Absolutely.
Because Matt Ryan is still an MVP caliber quarterback. And if they don't have such a garbage offensive coordinator this year, they might actually go back to the dominant way of play. Number 3, I'm going to have to elevate Hills and Watkins. But I said if I'm in Kansas City, I think the quarterback play, as you mentioned, is a big factor, and they have the most explosive offense in the NFL. Lastly, number 4, I'm gonna put Cooper Kupp and Woods.
You're putting
in number 4.
Number 4. No. Timmy, your bias is showing. Tim.
Okay, do not sleep on Cooper
Kupp. He's great.
He is the best slot receiver in the game, and Robert Woods is one of the most slept on wide receivers in the league as well. He's one of the most versatile and tough.
He'll get you 700 yards, man. Is he getting you 1,000 though? Nope.
Okay, well, we don't have Todd Gurley in LA anymore, so I think him and Cooper's numbers should rise. And then number 5,
but you have that terrible quarterback as the Rams starting quarterback. You have freaking
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff, man, he not
took less
good.
Money. Okay,
he signed a huge deal, and he's not that good.
No, I think it was last season. It might have been 2018. His first 3 to 5 games, 2 to 4 games, I want to say first 4 games, he had an MVP caliber start, and then he just fell off. So I think he still has the potential to be a very good quarterback. Just I don't know if his mentality and leadership is consistent enough right now. Being it from a young player, and that's probably what he needs to figure out right now. At number 5, I'm gonna say Evans and Godwin. You have Gronk on as your tight end, and OJ Howard, I think, too. And pairing them with Tom Brady, we all know I think he's gonna have a resurgence, at least for probably a good half of the season. I don't know how long it'll be able to last, or if his old age will show and he'll get burnt out. But I think that'll last for a little bit. And I think they'll have a pretty dominant offense for at least part of the year. And we all know how good Mike Evans is. I think in most conversations he can be he can be thrown around and as the best receiver in the league. Whether you leave him off or he's a top 3, top 5, and depending on who you asked or who you're having a conversation with, but he's pretty up there.
Evans is very good, and he got thrown plenty of passes from Watson,
from a whole bunch of bombs,
from Jameis Winston over the last few years. But let's not start elevating a guy who hasn't won anything yet.
Okay, but you can't put that on just a receiver. Is he throwing the ball? Is he signing players?
Yes, he's very good, but I wouldn't say he's top 5. I don't think he's top 5. I think he's very good. I think he's not top 5 though. I'd put freaking Michael Thomas above him.
The Rams aren't winning. Are you gonna say Aaron Donald isn't the best nose tackle in the league? Nope.
Well, they went to the Super Bowl, buddy.
Okay, but
how many Super Bowls did Tampa Bay win to recently?
Okay, but I'm saying
not many.
They're not contending right now. The Rams aren't contending right now.
Yeah, they're not.
He can still be just like AJ Green. We know how garbage Cincinnati's been, but when AJ Green's healthy, he's a top 6, he's a top 5, top 6, top 7 receiver in the league.
Top 9, top 10.
He's
a top 10 receiver.
He's getting older. I think I want to say he's 30, 31.
He's still a dog though.
But he's still a beast.
He's still a dog. Yeah,
and we'll see what Joe Burrow and him can do in Cincinnati.
That's a little bit scary. I'm not excited to see what Cincinnati can do. I just don't want to deal with them.
I'm not scared of them. I still don't believe in the front office. I still don't believe them to be a stable, a competent organization. I don't care about them.
Can we get the first game of the season to be Baker versus Burrow?
That might be fun.
I would really like that.
Or you can say this is a fictional scenario. Say Big Ben isn't ready to go game 1, and you have Mason Rudolph as a starting quarterback.
Interesting.
That would be a fun game 1 too.
Interesting.
And because Miles Garrett would be back as well, that'd be a whole lot of fun.
Correct.
That'd be a whole lot of drama for the NFL.
I would really just like the Cincinnati game to be game 1 though, because I think that's really interesting because you get the Baker versus Burrow matchup, and you also get the opportunity to put Burrow on a bad start to his NFL career. Not that I don't want Burrow to do well, I don't want him to win games.
Against the
I want him to be the Jameis Winston of the AFC North. That'd be great. A lot of interceptions.
30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions.
30 interceptions. Okay. I want our defensive backs to know exactly what he's going to do and be able to pick him off on a consistent basis.
Is Hugh Jackson with the Bengals? Didn't he sign as an assistant coach?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, the only person who's out there from the Browns that really is notable is the Freddie Kitchens is over in New York with the Giants.
And
he's he's an advisor or some sort to the offense, which I don't know what you're gonna do with him. But
yeah, so that's my top 5.
I don't know, man. Okay, so last little note thing on Thursday, league schedule comes out
tomorrow. Yeah,
for the preseason and the regular season. We'll have a great idea of where the games are going to be. No international games, so the Browns London game gets moved back to the States.
Will it be Cleveland or Jacksonville?
Yeah, so we get an extra opportunity there. Will be interesting to see where they shift things around. I'm excited to play the schedule game. I don't want to play the win game quite yet, even though we likely will.
I'll play it. 13-3, regardless of the schedule. 13-3.
I can't wait to beat the Cowboys.
That's Mr. Cleveland hopeful.
If I'm gonna call any win, like in the season, it's gonna be the Browns beating the Cowboys. I hate the Cowboys. Gosh,
didn't we beat them last year?
No.
We should have beat them last year.
That
was New England. We should have beat New England.
Oh yeah, but you outcoach yourself.
Yeah. And you just made a whole lot of mental errors.
Yeah.
You had Nick Chubb having the weirdest fumble of all time.
Oh, that sucked.
It hit off his lineman's helmet, didn't it?
Yeah, there was that one, and there was the one he got stripped from behind. That he was like, he was off the races and he got stripped from behind. This is a weird football game that did not go the way you wanted it to, and we just couldn't bounce back from it.
Wait, I think they showed resiliency in that game. The players did. I don't think they had the coaching to overcome it.
Yes, coaching will put you out of games more often than not.
Time after time. Yep.
Time after time. It's a tale that's always true.
Tales all the time.
All this time. The Browns haven't had good coach since they came back. I mean, maybe Eric Mangini, but that's about it.
Eric Mangini, I think, was was
the best coach that we had since
unfortunately
coming back in '99.
Unfortunately, was a scapegoat for Jimmy Haslam.
Before he knew enough. He still doesn't know enough. But before Jimmy really understood what coaching was all about in the NFL.
He has an idea, I think, now, but I still don't expect much from him.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see how the season pans out. If he gets it right this season, I'll feel better about Jimmy Haslam, but I still won't feel good. I just want to see the Browns move the needle forward, get in the playoffs like they deserve to be with this roster, and hopefully we'll be in a position to compete for a Super Bowl.
I think the potential's there. I agree. We'll have to see how it pans out, as always.
But as always with our episodes, if you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend. Drop us a comment. Give us a review. I'd love to hear what you have to say about some of our topics here today. I think we have some definitely controversial stuff going on. Some of them can be fun, but definitely want to have this conversation because I think it's a fun one.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama.
A lot of drama
in Cleveland, and it's not associated with OBJ. That's a good day.
It's a great day. It's a great day. But in Cleveland, as we always say, everything in Cleveland is earned.
Boom, boom, boom.
Welcome to the Everything is Earned podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and unfortunately, Tim's not able to do this podcast with me today, but don't worry, we have a lot to talk about. Actually, the biggest thing we have to talk about is the NFL schedule that was just released. Interesting, the way the Browns schedule turned out this year. Last year we get four primetime games. It's a loaded schedule. We look at the back half and go, man, the Browns could really put something together here, make a playoff push, and get themselves into the wild card or the division, depending on how things go. And as obviously we know, things didn't turn out the way we'd like them to. Particularly with those primetime games. You don't start out the way last year you get the Jets as a nice bounce back game after you get your butt kicked by the Titans. Wasn't a perfect game, but it was a nice little bounce back. You go in and you play the Niners, and you get your butt absolutely handed to you by the Niners. And further case in point, the Niners actually had a really great season, ended up losing in the Super Bowl and blowing a 10-point lead. But, the Niners, pretty much handled their business when they played the Browns on Monday Night Football. We also hosted the Rams last year, a very winnable game that the Browns botched. And then we had the Steelers game, which we had won on Sunday Night Football, but that was the infamous Myles Garrett game. So the league looks at the Browns, they go, man, still a very well put together team, better coaching, more talent. It's a team that could definitely produce well, but we're not going to give them the same type of hype that we gave them last year, and they can't really give them this kind of primetime schedule with the way we performed last year. So obviously, with the Myles Garrett thing, with the way that things turned out last season, they had to slow the hype train down just a little bit, and they gave us 2 primetime games this year. Actually, really nice placement with the primetime games. If you look at it, the week 2, you get you get Thursday Night Football against the Bengals. Great time for a primetime game. You get a chance to come back and get a win at home. Whether or not you stay in that Baltimore game week 1, it's really kind of a toss-up. Week 1 football is kind of a mystery. Some teams come out and surprise other teams, and you really don't get a good sense of what a team's going to look like until probably week 3, week 4 as the team starts to get their identity together. Baltimore will be having J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State that they'll be adding into the system. So you could catch the Ravens on a, we have all these toys, what are we going to do with them type of situation. You also have to remember that last year the Browns, did get that beat down on the Ravens, and then the Ravens pulled off 14 games in a row. So the Browns, as a division game, I always feel they have a little bit better chance against the teams like the Ravens and the Steelers, just because you can heighten the sense of competition as a division rival. So the Ravens don't scare me as much as a team like the Chiefs would. I really, think Lamar Jackson had a heck of a season last year, and obviously he's shown he can perform at a very high level, and he was the MVP. So the Ravens are still a very dangerous team, and odds makers are actually saying they have the best chance at winning the Super Bowl in early simulations here. But I would say that Baltimore Week 1 is kind of a toss-up game, but Baltimore does have an 8.5 point favorite towards them. So they're 8.5 point favorites. At home, opening up. Definitely wanting to get their season started off on the right foot. So I like that week 2 we played the Bengals. It's a really great spot for it. And then the other primetime game they have is December 14th against the Ravens on Monday night. That's a home game as well there. I think that's great because that allows you to get a chance to see what the Browns look like mid-season form. It's really a great game too because you're coming off of the Jaguars and Titans, so you could have a little bit of momentum rolling there for you. But late in the season, the last 4 games, they're really a good spot to kind of show what you're made of on primetime there. So that'd be a good chance to say, hey, we're for real. Hey, we're supposed to be here, and hopefully you have identity set together by then. And be really nice if you could do that. The Browns schedule as a whole is actually pretty solid. I like what they have out there for us. It's not unwinnable. There's not any real gauntlet stretches where you have to worry about going on a big losing streak. It's a pretty balanced schedule. I think the toughest part is actually to kind of close the season. You close the season at home versus the Ravens, and then you go away back-to-back games against the Giants and then the Jets. And then you close the season against the Steelers. So depending on how the Steelers do, you could be in a tough situation week 17, try to punch in your ticket into the playoffs, or you could be resting guys. It all depends on where you're at and where the Steelers are at. But the last 4 games, could be the toughest part about the season. And that's really difficult for me to kind of think about is it could all come down to 4 games. I'd like to say, the Jets, we got that. The Giants, we got that, but you remember those are 2 away games after a home game versus the Ravens. So if you beat the Ravens, you set yourself up to go on a 4-game winning streak. However, if you lose the Ravens, you really have to get some get back against the Giants, and then you have to show up against the Jets. But however, we do have the Odell Beckham Jr. Storyline going on there, so that could be something that you could get a big time performance out of Odell if that was the case. So looking at the schedule, I like, again, the balance of it. I like where the primetime games are placed. The toughest stretch, I do believe, is the last 4 games. And again, that's at home versus the Ravens on Monday night, at the Giants, at the Jets, and then Steelers at home to close the season on January 3rd. They currently have that Jets game as either the 27th or 28th. It's a TBD, so they don't have a set time for it. It's still kind of up in the air. And I'm sure they're going to figure it out, but it's still kind of in flux right now. Another big change from last year is the Browns have 12 1 p.m. games. That's a big improvement. Obviously, it's going to make everyone's schedules a little bit easier this year in Cleveland. I know last year we had all of the games in 4:25, Monday night, the Sunday night, the Thursday night. We were kind of bouncing around a little bit, and I know that is nice to get showcased on national television, but when you get your butt kicked, it's not so nice. So fortunately, we've got 12 1 p.m. games. It'll make things a little bit easier. We'll be in a little better spot there. And then the final thing here is we only play 4 playoff teams from 2019. So like I said, the schedule's pretty balanced. You're not playing this big gauntlet of tough opponents. You only have 4 teams that were playoff teams last year. You got the Ravens, you've got the Texans, you've got the Titans, and I'm missing one here. Cowboys? Were the Cowboys a playoff team last year? I want to say no. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it was only 4 teams that made the playoffs last year. So that's not too bad. I think strength of schedule wise, we're doing okay here. So now that we have the schedule, we have the dates, the times, everything's set. As long as everything goes off accordingly, we could be looking at pretty solid season here. I want to go game by game today. I think playing the scheduled game is kind of a tough thing to do this far away from the season, especially with everything going on. They look like it's going to still be on this timeline, and NBA teams actually return to practice facilities this week. The Cavs in particular, and I believe I want to say the Nets did as well. So there are two teams that did return to practice this week. So things are getting a little bit back to normal. Recently, Ken Rosenthal of the Athletic actually said that the Indians have told their players to prepare for a July 1st start to the season. So that's exciting as well. So the Indians could come back here soon. And, we're looking at the NBA season either resuming here, and finishing up the season, which will be great. And then hopefully baseball will start up. So we have some things coming on the horizon, which are definitely exciting. I'm definitely happy to see that we're getting things kind of back to normal here. I'm excited for sports. I know we might be in a place where we're not going to be able to have full capacity in the stands, or it might be just a partial capacity, or might be no fans at all. So tough to think about those being the possibilities, but we have a NFL schedule out. We have some preliminary things going on here with the other major sports. So it's good to see that things are starting to get back to a little bit normal here. The one thing I did want to mention here as well, as kind of bonkers, is Peter King, actually, national writer, a radio guy, said that he believes that one of the things they might do is not serve alcohol at the stadium, which would be crazy, but it's a weird reality that they can maybe not serve alcohol. I think that's would definitely change people's plans as to how they watch the game, how they plan to enjoy a game. Not having alcohol, it would be kind of crazy, because it is such a major part in sports and is a big part of the concession sales and what people do while going to a sports game. So interesting to see how that pans out, and if that'll actually come to fruition, or if it'll be something that that gets tossed around quite a bit here. So ultimately, good day in sports though. Yeah, the schedule coming out, and we're excited about that, and the possibility of the Indians returning in July, and and the Cavs back at the practice facility is a pretty encouraging stuff here. So I'd love to hear what everyone's season predictions are, what they think will happen here with the Browns' upcoming season. Please shoot us a comment, or leave it in the leave it somewhere. I don't know, leave it on the iTunes. Just let us know what you thought about the schedule and what your thoughts are. And then, leave us a review on the podcast. I'd love to see what you guys think, what suggestions you might have. If you have a suggestion, please, shoot us a DM. Love to hear about it. And as always here, we'd like to thank you for listening. And remember that in Cleveland, everything is earned.